Alright guys, welcome along to Here's Rodder's Reviews, the show that is delving deep into nostalgia for the most part, and we're getting into an 80s show that was phenomenal back in the day. There's a mess load of these videos already done in this series, so if you want to check any of them out, go back and check out the playlist and He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. So we're getting up into an episode here called Eye of the Beholder. Tasty little episode. At the beginning, Man-at-Arms and Adam, they're flying back to Eternia and the Wind Raider, and as they're flying along, the engine starts to cut out on it, and eventually it starts to fall from the sky. So of course Prince Adam holds aloft his magic sword and by the power of Grayskull changes into He-Man and manages to stop the Raider from crashing by lassoing a line into a mountain, and he drops down and they cut the line. One Raider falls down into his hands, but he's complaining about the weight of it and his strength isn't what it should be. So him and Man-at-Arms drag the thing back to the palace. When they get there, they notice there's a tree in the palace grounds that is dying and withering, and it falls over at one point. He-Man again has to save the people and they're from getting hurt by this fallen tree. Manages to do that, but again his strength is starting to wane even further. He can't work out what's going on here, so eventually they work out with the power. They work out with the help of the sorceress that the air content, the oxygen, the air of Eternia. I'm tripping over my words in a big bad way tonight. Yes, the forest in Eternia is the evergreen forest, and this is, at the end of the day, this is a kid show, so of course the sorcerer, she goes through the whole thing about photosynthesis and all that sort of stuff, and the plant life takes in carbon dioxide, puts out oxygen, all that sort of stuff. So they work out that the evergreen forest, which is the main oxygen supplier, is getting cut off from the Sea of Eternity. That the water feeds the plants give oxygen and whatnot. It's the story of just how the planet works essentially, and if it comes to oxygen, how it's created. So they work that out. He-Man is on his own at this point in the episode. Everybody else is starting to get weak. They can't do anything because of the lack of oxygen. I was waiting for Spaceballs to be in the atmosphere with a big vacuum cleaner sucking the energy, the air out of the planet's atmosphere, but no, it turns out that Skeletor is behind this, and this is one of his attempts to gain control of Eternia and take over Castle Grayskull, is to cut the oxygen from people. So He-Man and him, they have these little oxygen tanks. Skeletor is, good to go for the most part. Beastman, Triclops is there as guards for him, beaten fairly swiftly by He-Man whenever he takes out their oxygen tanks. So at that point, on his way, actually, he meets, how did I forget this part? These creatures, they're like bugs, insect-like creatures, and one of them, I laughed when I heard the name of the leader of these insect people, Garf. I was waiting for some cool Eternia sort of a name for this guy, something other than Garf. But so there was him, his second in command, Shaman. They are not very trustworthy towards He-Man because of how he looks. He's completely different from them. But Garth, the leader of these people, takes He-Man at his word after the fight with Triclops and Beastman, and he decides to go off and help He-Man stop whatever's happening. They just, at this point, all they know is the Sea of Eternia isn't feeding the forest the way it should be doing. Yeah, so they get there. They see Skeletor has this pumping machine, and he's pumping the water out of the Sea of Eternity and pumping it down onto the planet, just getting rid of it. Madman, absolute madman. So the fight commences basically at the end, and He-Man's trying his best to get up there and take on Skeletor. He's sitting up halfway up this machine. There's a ladder up to him. All He-Man has to do essentially is climb this ladder and do what he has to do, but because there's very little oxygen left in the atmosphere, he's constantly losing his strength. He gets up there and he falls down. He's within arm's reach of Skeletor. He's given the usual speech about, you're doomed, He-Man, I'm gonna rule the whole planet if I'm the only one alive, more or less. And just the usual typical 80s bad guy style. It's wonderful. But while this is going on, Garth takes the opportunity to try and block off the machine that Skeletor's using to pump the water out, and it's basically just sucking the water out of the Sea of Eternia and pumping it down into the planet's underbelly, more or less. So he jumps into the water with a rock, and the rock gets sucked up, blocks the machine. And Skeletor, he's trying his best to get out there, fix it. He-Man, he's still weak, and he manages eventually to climb the ladder again and hit the reverse button on this machine and suck the water back out from where it was been pumped to and back into the Sea of Eternity. There's a dam up there keeping the whole thing blocked off even more. And He-Man basically uses more or less the last of his strength. He gets an oxygen tank off Skeletor, gets a wee puff of oxygen in there to keep himself going, and manages to bust the dam open, get the water back to where it is meant to be to feed the forest and keep life going through the plants and whatnot. It's a good story for kids at the end of the day. So when Garth jumped into the water with the rock, Skeletor comments that your companion has sacrificed himself for nothing, but this been the show that it is. Of course, this guy hasn't died, but He-Man's like, no sacrifice is for nothing. Great lessons have been taught in this show. And again, I've said it in countless reviews of this series that, back in the day, there was really good content being put out to just educate children on how to be better people. And the majority of people that watched this as children, that grew up to be some fantastic people in life. He evolves from the insect-like creature to he's more human shaped, and he's got wings like a butterfly. So he comes out of the water, helps He-Man finally get the upper hand on Skeletor, and Skeletor, of course, at the end of the episode calls his retreat and off he goes. They then head back to the insect people because their eggs are due to hatch. This is the whole thing of Garth in this story. His people, their eggs only hatch every 50 years, I think they said. So because the oxygen isn't getting through to anything on the planet, their eggs are on the verge of being just useless. So at the end of the episode, they head back. He's evolved into this new creature. It looks completely different from what he was. He's insect looking, and people throughout the episode are constantly calling him a monster. And he couldn't get it really, because Beastman called me a monster, but he looks strange to me, sort of a thing. So happily ever after, as usual. At the end of the episode, the the balance is set again. The plants are putting out their oxygen, everybody's got their strength back, and even Orko has got his magic back. And he does a little demonstration and say, look, I couldn't do my magic earlier on, but I can make this beaker disappear. And he tries it and accidentally makes himself disappear. But that's what you're expecting from that character. It's a little hee at the end of it. And the end of each of these episodes, as per usual, there's a moral to the story. And if you didn't get it watching it, there was always a character pops up at the end of each episode to fill you in on exactly what the moral of the story was. So I just pulled it up here so I could read it to you. Tila, as the character that breaks fourth wall, talks to the viewer in today's story, which is great, love it. She says, today we met Garth, who to some people looked like a monster. But Garth wasn't a monster. He was a good person with a noble soul, and in the end, his beauty showed through. Real beauty comes from inside, which is why ugly people can sometimes be the most beautiful people. Hold on, real beauty can come from the inside, which is why ugly people can sometimes be the most beautiful people to know. And why people who look beautiful sometimes act very ugly. For some reason, reading that back didn't sound quite right. But essentially she finishes it off with, being beautiful on the outside is alright, but being beautiful on the inside, that's the best. We close out the episode. Fantastic. Loving this series. It's been a long time since I did a little chat on He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. I'm going to be doing this as often as I can moving forward here. So if you didn't come for this video, the X-Men episodes seem to be doing pretty good at the minute. So I'm going to be bouncing off classics, from the 80s, 90s or whatever. All nostalgia at this point. Like I've said before on the channel that I'm kind of not lost interest in the newer stuff. But it's not what it was back in the day. So I've got a ton of stuff there that I want to get into with the review channel. We're finally going to get through to the end of the reviews in He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. If you've never checked out this series before, would highly recommend it. If you have kids, buy the box set and make sure to sit down to watch it. Again, you see the moral of the story there. It's about the beauty of the inside of a person, and not just to be looking at that exterior shell, but who the person actually is. So it's all stuff they got. Fantastic. One of the best episodes is A Friend in Need. I would highly recommend you checking that episode out. If you've never seen any of them, start off with A Friend in Need. It is fantastic, and something that you would not normally see in a cartoon that's directed towards children. But again, the 80s was a different time, and just the content you were getting back then was something very, very special. Right, that's going to do it. I think I hear noise coming towards the studio, so I'm going to cut this episode off now before the head cases start out here. So stay safe, guys. Until the next episode, be good, and I'll talk to you all then.